Good evening. Welcome to tonight's On the Edge with me, Theo Chalmers. Tonight's show is 2 hours long and live, so if you have any questions for my guests during the show, text them to 87778 with the word EDGE, a space, and then your name, location, and your message, and we'll try to pick up on any that really hit the mark. They're all charged at standard rate, so why not get ready to text? On tonight's show, we will be discussing some very sensitive subjects that viewers may find extremely harrowing. However, I would stress that our aim is not to shock or offend, and it may be very important that you carry on watching because this story is already becoming huge, and it is always best to hear it from the actual source. It involves alleged activities by well-known leading politicians, the police, and the justice system in Scotland and England, and most particularly the alleged conspiracy to bury the truth by a group of influential people in Aberdeen that, if true and proven, is likely to bring down governments and destroy glittering careers. And yet, strangely, this gigantic story has been almost totally ignored by the mainstream media. Therefore, if you feel that you are entitled to know about such things, I urge you to keep watching. My guests tonight are a mother, Anne Greig, who tragically discovered her Down syndrome daughter was, along with others, being sexually abused by a well-connected paedophile gang that was apparently even prepared to commit murder to cover the truth. Her legal advisor, Robert Green, who is being harassed by the police in Aberdeen and Warrington, where he lives, and who is now standing for Parliament in Aberdeen South, but is not allowed to campaign there. And the little girl herself, now aged 30, Hollie Greig, who's on the sofa too. What a show we've got tonight. Welcome to you all.
Thank you.
Welcome.
And I suppose particularly thank you to Hollie, because, you know, I know it must be hard because this is about you, isn't it? I think the best place to start is at the start. And if you want to give me a little bit of background and about your life and how you discovered what was happening to Hollie.
Well, basically, I fled my home after my husband beat me up, and I went into a hostel in Aberdeen. And it was while I was in the hostel that Hollie told me.
With Hollie?
Yes, with Hollie, yes. And we were in the hostel 2 weeks when Hollie told me about her dad, and how it came out was she said that I was trying to reassure her.
And how old was she at this time?
She was 20.
She was 20, okay.
Yes, yes. And I was trying to reassure her that everything would be all right, that in 1994 I was actually going to divorce my husband because I found out that he was sleeping with prostitutes in Singapore. But I was persuaded by him and you know, some family members to give it another go. But this time I decided, no, enough was enough. So I was trying to, you know, really reassure Hollie that everything was going to be all right. And she says, well, we've got to get the dogs, Mum. And I says, well, get your dogs. And she says, no, he'll kill them. And I says, no. I says, this is a row between your father and myself. This has nothing to do with the dogs or you or anything. She says, no, he'll kill the dogs and he'll kill me too. And at that point she says, because he touches me. And I says, he what? And she says, he touches me. And I says, what do you mean? He touches you, you know? And she pointed to certain, you know, areas in her body, and I just couldn't believe it. And I says, I kept saying to her, are you sure, Hollie? Are you sure? You know? And she went, yes, yes, you know? And I really didn't know what to do because I was in a hostel. You know, I'd already been beaten up, I was covered in bruises myself, you know? And I thought the best thing for her to do was, I says, well, tomorrow, I says, you'll be going out with Helen, your carer, because she was coming to the hostel to take Hollie, you know, to do her normal sort of things, because we were trying to keep her life as normal as possible.
I think it's important to say there that we're not encouraging you to use names of people that can be identified, yes. Because we're treading a bit of a tightrope with this program, and there are some rules that we have to try and obey.
Okay.
I think I ought to need to say here that anything that's said on this show is not necessarily the opinion of the production company or the television station, and
sorry.
That's okay. Carry on. I'm sorry to interrupt.
That's all right. So she went out with her carer, and when she came back, our carer wasn't saying anything. And I asked the carer, you know, I said, did Hollie tell you about her dad? And she went, oh yes. And I says, oh yes. I said, are you not concerned about that? And she went, oh well, you know. And I went, oh well, you know, and I really got angry, you know. And I says, oh well, I says, if you're not concerned about it, I says, I am. I says, I'm going to go to the police. So, oh, I'll come with you. I says, no, I says, you're not even concerned. You know, I says, so why, you know, would you want to come to the police with us? No, I'll drive you. So she insisted in driving us. So she drove like a snail down Union Street, and eventually we got to the police station at Queen Street, and she wanted to come in with us. And I says, no. I says, you're not coming in. I says, because you weren't, you know, prepared to, you know, do anything about it in the first place. And basically, you know, we went in and Hollie told the police officer what she'd told me, and the police officer said to her at the time, and when did this, you know, where did this take place? And Hollie went, Brazil. Now, up until that point, I didn't even know that, you know, and I went, Brazil. And she went, yes, Brazil. I says, Hollie, I said, are you sure? And she went, yes, Brazil. And at that point, you know, Hollie was 6 years old when we were in Brazil, and that's...
So you worked out from that for 14 years
yes.
she'd been abused?
Yes.
And you had no idea?
No, none at all.
So, okay, so you've gone to the police. Presumably they investigated.
Well, that's what they called it. I waited from the May right through, I think it was the July or August. They weren't sort of telling us anything. And then it was about 6:30 at night, I get a phone call from a guy who said he was from the Procurator Fiscal's office.
The Procurator Fiscal, which is the sort of like the Solicitor General or something, isn't it, in Scotland, is the person who decides to
like the
prosecute.
Prosecution.
Yeah, they're the
yes.
people who decide to prosecute or not
That's
prosecute.
correct. Yes.
In Scotland,
yes.
under Scottish law.
That's
yeah.
right. And he just said that they weren't going to prosecute because there wasn't enough collaboration in the case.
So because it was Hollie's word?
Yes, against her father's.
Did they accuse you perhaps at that time of making it up, or you know, because you'd been beaten up? Because the suggestion would be, wouldn't it, possibly, that there was some kind of revenge or something?
I wasn't aware of anything. I know that we weren't, you know, I wasn't being treated very nicely, I can say that, but I wasn't aware of it at that point. It wasn't till over the summer, Hollie, you know, kept mentioning, you know, more and more names of people that had abused her as well. And it was on the 25th of August, I thought.
What year is this? 2000?
2000, yes.
So she was giving you other names of people?
Yes, yes.
So then you realised that it was bigger than...
It wasn't just her father, yes. There was a lot of other names involved as well, family members and friends of my husband's. And I spoke to, you know, my family members, you know, that I was
What, on your side of the family?
Yes, yes. And they said, you've got to go back to the police. So we went back on the 25th of August to the police station, and I was separated from Hollie, and a police officer took me into a room by myself and asked me what Hollie had told me. You know, so I told the police, and you know, obviously it took quite a while for this to happen.
So you told him everything that she told you?
She had told me, yes, that's correct. Okay. And then when I got back, eventually got back to where Hollie was crying, you know. And I says, oh, it's all right, Hollie. I says, that's just finished now. I says, I'll take you to McDonald's, you know. And when we got to McDonald's, you know, she couldn't eat her burger, you know, I would say she was definitely disorientated. And we took her burger and went back in the car, and we're driving home when she told me that this person that was with her...
A social worker?
A social worker, that's correct.
Because she'd been in a room with a social worker?
That's correct.
Just with a social worker?
I don't know if anyone else came in. When I left her, she was just in the room by herself with the social worker.
And you know the name of this person, but we're not going to...
That's correct, yes.
I mean, if people want to Google Hollie Greig, and the spelling is on screen right now, then they can, and they can learn things that we can't say on this show. I should say that, but obviously, you know,
Yes.
we can't. So